Hi guys, I'm going to start with a disclaimer, and I wanted to introduce you all to Robert, and I'm very happy that you agreed to come here and accepted my invitation. And my first question actually is, could you introduce yourself to everyone because I think you will do it best.
I'm really glad to be here. I am similar to you. I started putting myself out there through social media with the intention to improve my public speaking skills, share some of the cool things I was learning. And I started noticing your presence online about 2 years ago. I think you had some interviews you did and some of the podcasts when you were doing the Pen 200 training. So that was really cool to see you putting yourself out there and stuff. And it was also really exciting to see you recently join Black Hills, which is a really cool consultancy and a respected player in the space. So congratulations on that career journey. To answer your question, I introduce myself. My name is Robert. I've been in the information technology space for about 12 years now. I started my career in the United States Marine Corps as a communications specialist, and I learned some of the basics of network security. That took me when I transitioned out to the private sector. That took me to pursue my CCNA and CCNP, which are some of the books that you're probably seeing back here, and that was essentially the biggest enabler for my career in offensive security because I started to understand, how computers and enterprise networks are talking to each other and how they're built and secured also. And essentially, I still use to this day the same skills that I built early on in my career through that, right? And I'll give you a little teaser later of some of the novel research that I will be presenting at some industry conferences this year, like DEF CON, B-Sides Las Vegas, Sky Talks, Munich, Cyber Tactics, Techniques and Procedures, as well as PRASEC, a Czech Republic based invitation only offensive security conference. So really excited about that and to share some of that research with the public. But to keep answering about how I ended up in the offensive security space. After I built a career in network security and cloud security, I took on a offensive security role as part of a startup called Truveta, and I spun up their offensive security program. They didn't have red team, they didn't have penetration testing, so I was like kind of like doing a little bit of everything, right? And um, that allowed me to get some experience with like things like physical penetration testing, like kind of like breaking into the building and those kind of things, and also enhance my knowledge of cloud security because the platform that they're building is supported by dozens of microservices, things like Kubernetes clusters, Docker containers, all in Azure, right? So I got really sharp in that space. And from there, I transitioned to an insurance company called Humana, where I lead the red team. Been at Humana for close to 2.5 years now, and I am loving the space. This is essentially what I think I was born to do, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how I first started learning about computer security early on in my life. But that's essentially the TLDR, right? So, how about you? Like, how has your journey been in the space? How do you end up here?
That's a very long answer, and I don't think we have that time. But yeah, my first I started. Yeah, I will try to make it like faster. So I always wanted to study computer science, but I didn't believe in myself enough to do it when I was a teenager, and like a female, I guess, as well. So I went to study economics, ended up working for the government, accounting European Union funds, ended up very unhappy with my life choices and started thinking like, what do I actually want to do in my life? What do I love? What I enjoy? And then I reminded myself that, yeah, I always wanted to be like a hacker slash programmer, kind of like a person. And yeah, then started to go on the right path, like went to computer science, post-graduation studies, but still, and doing certifications, CompTIA, and like learning on IT Pro TV. I went abroad for a year in the Netherlands, and I started working as a software tester. and then going to hack the box meetups and like starting to network with people, like starting to listen more about pen testing, like what that is, like discovered that, oh yeah, being already like a software tester. And yeah, one thing led to another, and I work at Black Hills. If someone would tell me that I would end up here like 2 or 3 years ago, I would say, come on, stop, stop it. It's like I would never believe it, but it's like I'm still pinching myself because it's like very nice. So yeah, I actually thank you for asking, and I want to like flip up the ball in your direction. And my next question would be like, because we will talk about tech a lot, but who is Robert and what makes you smile? In other words, what sparks joy for you? Like, if that's not something in tech, then can you share? Like, but if it's tech, then yeah, please.
Yeah, certainly. So, telling you a little bit about myself outside of my role, because like you very well recognize, we're much more than our jobs, and kind of like our coworkers have a whole universe behind them other than what we see on the Zoom chat, right, or on the Microsoft Teams screen. I am happily been in a relationship for about 8 years. My partner is essentially the most impactful person I've had in my life. After having a relationship with the Lord Jesus, I gave him my heart and my essentially my dedication. And to that point, I owe him a lot. I feel like I'm blessed, Dorota, beyond what I could ever possibly deserve. Right, whether that is in my career, whether that is in my personal life. I'm very happy person, and I've had a fair share of like struggles and challenges, but I have to say that every day when I wake up, I do feel blessed, and I'm excited to tackle the day, right? And with that said, what puts a smile on my face is eating a big steak. I love Brazilian steak houses and that kind of thing, and I make sure that everybody knows that, because obviously if I go out for lunch with someone, I always let them know like, hey, I hope you like red meat, because I do. So it's easy to bond over that, right? With that being said, um, I try to do other things outside of things that are related to like offensive security and information security, but I do spend a lot of time for fun and for my own entertainment, researching these topics and understanding how these technologies work. When I was growing up, I had always the attacker mindset, and kind of saying like, well, we have maybe these headphones and they're supposed to have you listen to music, but what else can you do with them, right? So I always had like that nagging feeling in the back of my head, and I owe my family a lot, because my family were they were very attentive and paying attention to the things that I was doing. And I think that without them, I probably would have gotten into a lot of trouble, to be honest with you. And why do I say trouble? Okay, let me tell you a quick anecdote, or a small story from my childhood. But when I was in fifth or sixth grade, they had this cell phones called Sony Ericsson Walkman phones, right? The Sony Ericsson Walkman phones were a Java virtual machine based cell phone or operating system that you could easily write programs for and load the program as apps into the phone, right? And I came across a Polish hacker online through like a forum, and I was using, mind you, I was using Google Translate to understand what the hell I was even looking at. But what I came across, and his name was Marek Savidi, right? And what I came across was the first command and control application. Back then, I didn't even understand like why would a hacker use this. My sixth grade mind all was thinking was like, oh, I can load this program on my phone and I can control your phone through Bluetooth. So as you can imagine, next day I went to school and I had my phone up and I started like searching for like targets and stuff. And back in the day, kids would share MP3s and songs and like pictures and memes and things like that. We didn't have quite memes, but like the same concept, right? Like you had like funny pictures on your phone or whatever, right? I think that's been around for a while. But what all the kids in my class had their Bluetooth on, and what would happen is that I would request control of their phone with that application, and they would just grant it, because people, especially kids, like they didn't have like a security oriented mindset. And I could then control their phone, read their text messages, make their phone ring, see what the camera was seeing, all sorts of stuff. So as you can imagine, that could have landed me into a lot of trouble. But I had a lot of guidance growing up, and kind of like strong like morals and stuff. So that was kind of like one funny episode of many, many mischievous things that I was always curious or drawn to. And obviously, when you have the internet at your fingertips, you can be exposed to a lot of that really fast on demand. That's what I would say. I always had the nag to learn about information security. That's what I would say makes me smile. And similar to you, because of the pressure of my family, I went on to school, but I wasn't interested in anything. I also didn't believe in myself much. Of like, oh, this is gonna be difficult or something, right? So I went and I pursued a degree in economics, right? So that's what I did for undergrad. And I graduated from economics, but that's not really what I wanted to do with my life, right? So I went into the Marine Corps, and yeah, I would say that one thing led to the other, but I feel very, very fortunate about, how things panned out. And that doesn't mean that, I didn't have a lot of challenges coming up, or that life has always been, awesome. But I do look back and I think like I have many, many more things to be grateful about than things to not be happy about. So, it balances out.
That's a great answer, and I'm really happy that you have that. And I wanted to just say that I became the tester because I always had a talent or a curse, but I just touched something like electronical and it broke. So and I had always this curiosity. Oh, what does the button do? Like what this and that. And so yeah, this is like all connects. So I guess you are born with like that curiosity in a way. I think.
Yeah.
What inspired you to become a cybersecurity professional, and how did your career path lead to you to become a red team lead?
I would say, Dorota, that around 2014, 2015, I was still working as a network engineer, and it was interesting. I was learning, so my curiosity was, being satisfied to a degree, but I knew that I wanted to do much more. And back then, I don't think we had quite experience in the social media, like the boom of like, oh, everybody wants to be a hacker kind of thing. So the information around how to do these things was a little bit more sparse. But you could still find things of how to like do certain exploits and research, etc. It just wasn't everywhere like it is now. That it feels like you're gonna type something in Google, and if it starts with the H letter, it says how to be a hacker immediately, right? But I came across this like Medium article that said that if you really want to understand security, you need to be good at either programming or operating systems or networking. And that to me was a sigh of relief, because I was like, oh, okay, good. I'm already doing one of these things, right? And that invited me to go deep, to go really deep as I can go in the area where I am today. And what I figured was, if I get really good at one of these things, I will at least understand or have an easier time transitioning to having a security perspective in this area. And that is also a piece of advice that whenever people ask me, for mentorship or kind of like guidance, I always tell them, you don't have to go in and learn 17 different disciplines. That is actually, in my opinion, because everybody's different, right? But that is actually, in my opinion, an easy way to not be good at anything, because you're going to be mediocre at a bunch of other different things instead of just being really good at one, right? I'm really good at one or two things. I'm not that good at, I have some knowledge to do some things in many areas, but I would say that the easiest way to find yourself feeling stuck or find yourself like you're not making progress is to go in and pursue three courses and two certifications. And now I'm going to do this boot camp, and they're all unrelated. It's better to just focus. In my case, I focus on networking, network security, and that gave me a really strong foundation to then move into cloud. When I was transitioning, I specialized in AWS, so only one cloud. I learned AWS really well, and I very first started focus on only networking related services in AWS. So if I was doing Cisco equipment and Juniper and Fortinet, I then transitioned to, okay, how can I do the same things that I can do with that equipment, but in the cloud and only in AWS? And I kept expanding my horizon in that aspect. It was like, okay, now I know how to build networks. Let's see how we can secure them. Let's see how we can implement monitoring and observability, right? And back then you had things like Suricata, and IDS, IPS deployed in enterprise networks, and I learned how to set up the same constructs in the cloud. So now that my horizon expanded, but the specialty is just about the same: cloud infrastructure, how to make systems talk to each other, right? And I remember having a light bulb moment when I first started exploring. So I didn't go from AWS to like Azure or GCP. My journey was a little bit different because of the company I used to work for. The company I used to work for is a global company that used to sell enterprise resource management software, and they had customers all over the world, right? And that's an area too where I had a nice advantage because I am multilingual. I can speak Spanish in a native capacity, but also I can speak some level of French, right? Enough that I can have a troubleshoot some technical issue and go back and forth in email, and maybe I'll have some Google Translate here and there, right? But that's okay. It's why it's there. But that gave me a perspective of working with customers all over the world, and one of those customers was in China. Now you can imagine there's a lot of difference between Spanish and English and Chinese. But what that gave me exposure to was a cloud service called Alibaba Cloud. Okay, back then it was a kind of a niche service, right? But the light bulb moment came when I realized, oh, EC2 for VMs in AWS is Alibaba whatever, right? And I started seeing, okay, all the clouds are the same. They just have different, details, but they help you achieve the same things. One is to have compute services. One is to implement your VPN. One is to implement your logs. And that kind of like remove or started giving me like the confidence to say, okay, let me keep expanding with a calculated approach. Meaning, if I want to specialize in what do you call this in an offensive security testing or penetration testing, I just have to understand what are the underlying components that I'm most likely going to find across different clouds, right? And I started building my base, and I transitioned then to another company that was fully Azure native, right? And I mind you, I had only touched Azure here and there a little bit, so that transition took a little bit to understand the differences and the nuances and whatnot. But I feel like that set me on a path of success in the sense that I feel very comfortable if I land in an environment where I don't understand or I'm not an expert in that specific technology. I can find my way around, and with enough structured research, I can, come out to a positive outcome because what changes are the details, but the fundamentals are the fundamentals. Having a structured approach to troubleshooting, taking copious notes, and having a strong attention to detail in the same time, like having the confidence to go and ask questions when you don't know the answer. I shed that a long time ago to tell you have any sort of shame from saying I don't know, or hey, do you mind pointing me to a resource where I can do more research and learn about this? And those kind of things. And I know I'm speaking to a little bit more generic ideas, but I would say that having that mindset first will take you much further than to say, hey, I have Jenkins technology and that is using Groovy scripts. I'm going to learn everything about the Groovy language if you don't have the right mindset. Because, yes, you can get really good at one thing, but you won't have a mindset that will foster growth when you're challenged with things that you don't know. And I think you've experienced some of that working for Black Hills because you land in a customer environment and obviously you're not going to know every single technology that they have, and no two companies are the same. So when you present it like that, you realize really quickly what I need to get good at is at learning, not at knowing everything.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to expand on that thought, how to say it. So I used to work in work environments when I was pretty much managed. So a manager gave me tasks, and like I had certain amount of tasks, and but then I worked for Basic Fit in the Netherlands, and I asked my manager, would that be okay if I wrote a project of to automate testing for the functional parts of the web page? And he said, go for it. And that gave me so much freedom to explore and to learn that with creating that project from A to Z, what I discovered about myself was priceless, because in the morning I came into work and I didn't know how to do something. And like after 8 hours, I was leaving and it was already working, and like with a green checkbox that, yeah, it's functional and everything works. So that gave me like this mindset of Oh, I don't know this, but I will find out. And it was mind blowing and like life changing for me as well. And that's why I'm not like it was pretty overwhelming when I joined Black Hills because everything is different. I have to learn like from the top, like all the technologies. Most of them I haven't used, but I have this mindset. Oh, I will handle it, and I can learn. I can do it. So that was thanks to the project I wrote. So yeah, I'm really grateful for the manager that said, okay, go for it, and not like managing me with like other tasks and like, no, we don't have time for this, like yeah, other employer would have done. So yeah, that mindset is like really important, and also like thinking outside of the box for working in offensive security, I think.
You know, Dorota, with what you said, I think that if you take a step back from the professional setting and the work setting, the trait, a prerequisite trait or a prerequisite mindset you need to have to adopt a learning mindset is first to have humility. And you need to have humility to admit to yourself, hey, maybe I'm scared because I need to figure out this project very fast because it's work. Uh, but I have to accept and be kind to myself that I'm not going to know everything because something I notice, right? And I talk to a lot of people, online and people that like contact through social media, asking for help, whatever. And the most disheartening thing that I see, or that makes me the saddest, because I already foresee, wow, you're going to have a lot of challenge if you keep thinking like this, is when you're trying to tell someone, they ask you a question. They say, hey, how did you go from here to here? And you tell them, well, you just take this path and you're likely going to have this challenge or this challenge, but this is how you overcome it or how I overcome it. And then you're going to get to where you're trying to go, right? But the worst aspect, or the I would say the worst characteristic that I think a person could have at that moment when they're asking for help or they want to get somewhere, they want to have a goal, is when they're getting the advice or the guidance, they immediately dismiss it with like, "Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about," and they don't get to really listen, because sometimes, and nobody is perfect, right? But I've sometimes suffered from hearing a feedback or a piece of advice that deep down I didn't want to accept because it's like, oh, I don't like this thing, or this is too hard, or whatever the reason is, right? And I already was predisposed at not accepting the information that was given to me because I wanted to maybe like lie to myself and tell me, oh, I know enough about this. I don't want to deal with it. Or you get what I'm saying. Like a lot of people make jokes about C++. Oh, I don't want to learn C++ because it's annoying, whatever. Or C or something like that, right? And then the thing that you actually want to do that sounds cool in your head actually requires that as a prerequisite for you to get there, right? And I think that having that kind of a mindset, because it's the most common thing I'm seeing nowadays in an era where in social media you see people getting, I got this certification, I got this job, this or that, right? And you start to compare yourself. You're like, oh, I want to have that too. But what you're really not seeing in a social media post is the background and all the hard work that it took in the background that you're not seeing through the screen to get to where you want to get. And then you go and ask people, or you ask that person like, hey, how do you get here? And then they tell you something and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I know about that, whatever. And then you never really put in the work or give yourself the opportunity to admit to yourself, okay, I have some work to do. It's and I know it's more like psychological than a specific certification or whatever. But I think that really the difference I see between the people that get after it and have good results and the people that you see them and the years keep going by and they're like stuck in a loop and they're not making progress in many areas, I would say is that precisely that having humility to accept I need to put in hard work, and maybe I'm not going to like some parts of that work, but I have to do it anyway.
That makes sense, and thank you for sharing that wise yeah ideas. Now I'm speechless. So yeah, that's what happens. So okay, I will ask my next questions, and maybe I will gather myself in the process. But I saw on your profile that you have like Linktree, and it leads to Hacker Hermanos. And could you tell more about that?
Yeah, sure. So the whole idea between the Hacker Hermanos project is just a professional kind of brand, right? Like to put myself out there in social media in a way that lends itself to a easily recognizable um, concept. And what do I mean by that? So obviously on LinkedIn we have our names or whatever, right? Or like Twitter, you have your handle or your GitHub profile name, like your hacker name, all cool and stuff. But I wanted to put something that it was easy to remember and was punchy, right? So you have the word hacker. Everybody knows we're all like hacker this, hacker that, and then hermanos because, like I said, I'm native in in Spanish, but also it's a concept of everybody can be part of this, right? And what do I mean by that is I feel like a lot of the, at least something I personally don't like about sometimes the things you see in social media in the offensive security space is that people kind of like push others away, saying like, hey, you don't meet the bar, you don't know enough for this or that. There's two sides of that coin, right? That you have on the side like what everybody complains about, the gatekeeping thing of like making others feel like they're beneath you, and then there's the other side of that coin where you have people that uh, embellish or they misrepresent the experience that they have or they don't have. They claim to be something like we've all seen the meme in LinkedIn that says who you really are versus your LinkedIn persona, and then you have secretary or gardener, and then their LinkedIn persona is executive assistants of the elite company or something, or then the other one is for the gardener would be like top landscaping engineer or something like that, and it's like, come on, right? So the idea with the whole Hacker Hermanos was, okay, let me just have something that it's approachable, it's base level. I don't want to come across as we know everything, but more so as, hey, I'm just another professional here doing their best to learn and share what they know. So you just leave all the expectations, all the facade on the door, and just have something approachable, friendly, and that also I think the graphics look cool. So I think it was cooler than just having your plain old brand. But what that has afforded me, Dorota, is the opportunity to put out their presentations, do podcasts like this, and seek speaking engagements at like conferences and stuff, where I can present research, where I can present like the things that I'm learning, or let's say I know very much about this one topic. How can I make it affordable to others so that it's easy also to understand and share the knowledge, right? And most importantly, something that I'm excited about too is have had other colleagues that have contributed right to the blog that we have and stuff, and they write about the things they're interested in, and we're more than glad to just post it on our blog, and obviously we give them credit and put the name of the author, right? But the way I envision it is a platform where if you say, hey, today I want to share about this blog that I posted on my page about the covert access entry course that I did, you can also post it, and I'll post it for you in Hacker Hermanos, and obviously it would be like, hey, this is Dorota's content, but we're amplifying everybody's platform through a collaborative community kind of spirit, rather than you know to contribute in Hacker Hermanos, you have to be the best at this or that. I can't stand that. It's honestly boring.
Yeah, I actually love that you have this genuine, heartwarming. I don't know how to put it in words right now, but I have this characteristics. I think myself because I want to just share my knowledge. I'm a giver, so I think you're a bit a giver as well. So you are like everyone is welcome and not like like with my nose in the sky because you are better than you. Because I know this and this and this and already I passed OECP. I'm a god now, but yeah, it's like all is welcome, and I think that's what matters here. Like we are here to learn. I began when I first entered cybersecurity. I didn't have any mentors. I learned everything myself, and now I'm trying to maybe make things easier for other people that are entering the stage. So I think you have the same characteristics, and yeah, I really respect that.
Thank you, Dorota, for that. I appreciate it. Something too, that I noticed, and I'll just leave you because I don't want to also like beat a dead horse, okay? But one thing that I noticed as well on throughout my professional career, I had the fortune to work with at least a couple of individuals that probably are some of the most brilliant people that I've ever met, okay? And one of them actually has contributed projects to the offensive security space that you learn at every certification. You learn it in the OSCP, you learn it in the malware development courses, you because his work is that impactful. Okay. And when I get to work with this person, I'm thinking, or like when I saw their name, I'm like, wow, like this guy is gonna be, I better know what I'm talking about before like I even like have any conversation with him because, the guy like knows a lot. And what I discovered to my surprise was that he was probably the most humble individual that we had on that team, right? Whereas on the other hand, I had some other individuals that were also brilliant that I worked with, but their head was so inflated, thinking that they and man, it was like, wow, this is really funny. But yeah, what I wanted to take that part of the conversation as well was um, when you're doing offensive security and you're learning about how to compromise the security of countermeasures and controls and etc. You have to always remember that there is going to be somebody way smarter than you somewhere. So if you don't find that you care about morals or ethics, and that is not enough of a deterrent for you to say I'm not going to do anything stupid or anything bad, you at least should do it because you should know that there's somebody out there that is going to find you and is going to at some point you're going to get put a stop, right? And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of people, I think, go into this exploring like what the red team is and the offensive security because they think that they can become the evil genius hacker. Let me hack into your girlfriend's Facebook account or something like that, because you see those a lot. But you have to have that, again, back to the point of humility of knowing somebody's going to know more than I. And I had an episode at my current position where we were doing a campaign, an operation, right? And my area of specialization is infrastructure and automation. I can build you a command and control deployment that has everything you can ever imagine that can support as many people as you want. I can have a command and control deployment to support a team of 3 operators, or have a deployment that supports 100 operators, right? I focused a lot on understanding how to scale these systems, right? So that you could serve a increasingly bigger team, because I had that interest. I was just really curious. How the hell do North Koreans carry out all this like crazy complex operations, or like APT-41 out of China? How do they scale those things? Or like a ransomware gang? How do they deploy that so that they can all work as a team? Targeting like this many systems and companies at the same time. Um, so here I am thinking, okay, I'm really good at the command and control stuff, right? At the automation stuff. And there was one threat hunter at the company, like the guy knows a lot, okay? And he sent me a screenshot and he says, "Is this you guys?" And I started looking into the screenshot. And I'm like, how the hell did this guy catch my command and control? If I have all the OPSEC, if my stuff is stealthy, like how the hell did he know it was us? And he pointed a very specific IOC, indicator of compromise, right? That he picked out on one of the logs on the network packets of the traffic. And I was like, wow. How they, like, it was like a needle in a haystack moment. And that kind of like put me back in check. And it was exciting for two reasons. It was exciting because now I know to go in and remove that IOC so that my command and control can be more OPSEC safe. But the other part of the reason why it was exciting, it was because it was like one of those reminder moments of like, you're in a field in which you're probably going to be learning until the day you die if you continue here. There's no end to this, right? And I think that that part for me is extremely stimulating, because yeah, any job, it can get repetitive in some aspects. Oh, okay, got you, escalate privileges, got you, dump credentials, got you, let me go for the DA now, blah blah blah. Like there's a repetitive part. Our field, even though it is a new kind of a new profession, right? Like you didn't have like hackers 60 years ago. um, I would venture to say that it is as deep and as broad as something like law or medicine or psychology, anything like that, right? Our field, I believe it is that broad and that deep, in my opinion.
Yeah. I want to share something about myself. My character trait is I'm a learner, so I think that's why I am in cyber, because this field is ever changing. So something new comes up every day. So that keeps me like it's like a windmill, like self-motivating, because yeah, I have to learn this and this and this. Oh, that's it's cool, like okay. So, but without further ado, I'm going to ask about your novel research that you're working on. If there is there something, because you mentioned at the beginning, is there something like that you want to talk about, like you plan presenting this year?
Yes.
And if you do, then you can also like hype it for the conferences that invited you. And yeah, go for it.
Yes, so I'm going to post on our chat here, and if you don't mind, Dorota, repasting it on the Twitch chat because I'm not logged in. I'm going to post a list of conferences that I'll be presenting this on, so that if any of the audience is going to be there, they can come and see it live. Okay, and then I'll give you a brief, what am I going to be talking about and how I found it. Okay. All right, that's the conferences in order. Okay, so I'm going to be at besides Pittsburgh, besides Las Vegas, Sky Talks during DEF CON week, DEF CON Red Team Village, Munich, Cyber Tactics, Techniques and Procedures, MCTTP in Munich, and Praczek in Prague. Okay, and I'm really excited about this one, Dorota, because even though this is not a 0 day on Gmail, right? Like that would be like a really impactful finding or vulnerability. This is a abuse case. Abuse case means you have a tool that is out there that is public, open source actually, and the tool is meant to do one thing, but you can repurpose the tool as an attacker and use it for many other things. And some of the things that you can use this tool for, and I'm going to be showing that in the presentations. And actually, the DEF CON Red Team Village is going to be a workshop where we're going to be going hands-on with the audience, how they can use this tool for offensive security purposes. Um, what it allows you to do is establish command and control. It allows you to exfiltrate data at really high speeds. Okay, this morning we did a test at work with some of the blue team team members, and I think I can exfiltrate data at over 1 gigabyte per minute. Okay, which is really fast, right? And it also allows you to lateral movement, pivoting. But the most exciting part about all of this, because you could say, Robert, I can do all that with Ligolo, right? Or Shizzle, or any of those tools. Like, there's a lot of tools that do that. But the exciting part about this is that the IOCs, so the indicators of compromise that this tool leaves behind, are, I haven't seen others like this, in the sense that the way that the traffic is routed and encapsulated inside the endpoint, and where it's sent and how it's sent over where the attacker can control it, is kind of novel. Therefore, I've tested this in a few environments, enterprise environments, right? And environments that have millions of dollars of security investment. They have the best tools. They have the EDR. They have the network detection and response. They have the CM, custom detections, threat hunting pipelines, whatever, right? And it has not fired a single alert. As a matter of fact, the exciting part about it too is that even finding the malicious activity in the logs is extremely difficult. And I'll tell you why it's difficult. When you're doing like you landed an endpoint, right? Like you got your remote code execution. Now you have the ability to run OS commands on a machine. The more commands you run, the more of a breadcrumb you're leaving behind, right? So like assume like you're doing one of your pen tests for Black Hills, and you compromise this Apache server, and now you can run commands on the Linux box where it's running, or if it's a IIS on the Windows box, and you start doing something like who am I to get some situational awareness. You can start ipconfig to get some idea of the network and your IP address, etc. The more of those commands that you run, the more data points that you're giving the incident responder to say, okay, Dorota landed here, it got code execution through this process. I see that process calling out through like a command and control or something else. And now I see the commands that they're running. This tool, the more traffic that you route through it, the harder it is to detect. And I'll tell you why. In the environments that I've tested this, they're using that same service for legitimate purposes. Therefore, if you have 10,000 connections using this service, and I generate another 10,000, 15,000, taking them apart and seeing this one is bad and this one is good is extremely difficult. And the only way that, and I work with a lot of blue teamers like threat hunters, um, uh, threat intelligence, incident responders, CM engineers, and I've kind of like presented them the research, and I've also like demonstrated the command so that they can look at the logs and see if they can pick it out. And what the only way that we've come across a way to detect this is doing statistical analysis, where you can say, hey, based on these events and the prevalence of these endpoints on the target network, there's a chance that this is a bad thing, but not so much where you can say, oh, who am I /priv? Yeah, that's somebody doing discovery on the local endpoint. You don't have that level of certainty, right? So it's going to take. I'm still doing the research. I'm not trying to say like this is going to be impossible to remediate or mitigate. But what I am saying, I feel rather confident at this point, is that the bar of difficulty to detect and prevent this attack vector is very difficult, and very costly as well. So um, I'm gonna have to cut the teaser here because some of the talks I'm gonna have, like I'm gonna present, have like some terms of service, like, hey, don't reveal this before the conference. Some of them hold you to that. Uh,
Can I ask a question?
yeah,
That's perfectly fine, but how did you come across this finding?
well, I'm going to resist the urge to tell you that I was researching for months, Dorota, and many sleepless nights, and a lot of Red Bull. It was nothing like that. It was a Wednesday afternoon after work. I was looking for some code that I needed on an open source repository of a big famous company, and I mistyped a word on the search for the GitHub, and I see a repository come up, and the description of the repository kind of sparked the light bulb because it says, "Oh, this tool allows you to do this, this, and that." And I said, "Wait a minute, I think I can use that for command and control, data exfiltration, lateral movement. I should test this out." And I started testing it, and that night I was like, "Huh, this works really good. Let me open Wireshark and see what it looks like." And then when I started looking at the Wireshark traffic, I'm like, "Why can't I see the traffic? Where is this going?" And I started pulling the thread. I opened the source code, started reviewing the source code to see what how is it sending the traffic somewhere else, right? Um, and I remember thinking, this is going to be a little bit difficult to detect because, like I said, I have that background in networking and cloud security. So I have a lot of experience securing and building networks and scaling them. And I already came when I was like doing the research to say, okay, how can I prevent this, right? Not only how can I abuse this, but how can I prevent it? And I started noticing this might be challenging to detect. And then I said, there's no way that somebody else didn't notice this already. And I started like Googling and, doing the typical research. And I couldn't find anything at all about it. And Dorota, next day I came to work and I'm like, CTI team, like the threat intelligence team, do you mind looking into this? Somebody has to have abused this, right? And if they haven't abused this, can you find any research describing the potential for abuse? And they looked for like a week or two. They get back to me and they're like, hey, we don't know anything about this. We don't have any of our feeds or tools, like nothing is tracking this, right? But I'll tell you something though. Even though that is promising, because that means that maybe I ran into something new, there is a concept called the survivor bias. And what that means is that just because there's nothing out there publicly describing this potential for abuse doesn't mean that somebody might not already be using it, but they're being undetected. They're not detected, so therefore, we don't know that they're there. Yeah, but I like to be upfront about that because, like I was mentioning earlier, I really dislike people misrepresenting things. I think that in the era of social media, dishonesty and embellishing or making things seem like something they're not, just for the sake of feeding an ego or dealing with insecurity, is very prevalent. And there's there's no way one person can change everything about others. Especially, you cannot control what other people are going to do, but what you can do is model or behave how you like to be treated and how you like others to do things, right? So I think the mark of a leader is to model the kind of leadership that they would have wanted for themselves, right? So that's what I try to do. And that's why I say, I want to be super honest about the fact that maybe I could be the first person documenting this, but that doesn't mean that it could not be out there, right? I don't want to claim like, uh, I'm the only one that knows about this. Okay.
I respect that a lot. Okay, so what was the process of submitting your research for conferences? Because you mentioned a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you think was the thing that got you invited to present those findings?
I appreciate that question because I think that there could be value in other people that say, "Hey, I have also this idea. I want to do a talk about it." So I'll speak a little bit to that. Um, so the first thing I did, Dorota, when I tested the thing and it worked, I started writing a small white paper saying a quick overview, 2 3 sentences. This is what I think I found. This is why I think it matters, and in this paper you're gonna learn about da da da, like kind of like an executive summary. And then I put a little bit more into detail of, I believe this tool can enable an attacker to do this, and this. And then I put another disclaimer that said, according to available cyber threat intelligence of this date, this hasn't been observed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No research has been published, et cetera. And then I put an appendix. So that was like a one-page overview of what the hell is the idea here, the tool or the finding. What did I came across, right? And then I put in an appendix, and it goes into like probably like 9 or 10 pages, where I have like a walkthrough screenshot kind of thing, like a kind of think of like a write-up, okay? Where I say you first start with this tool, you run this command, you do this, you do that, da da da, and a whole kill chain of how you abuse it, how you use a tool for the malicious purpose. And then finally, I put another layer of what I call evidence, where I show, if you look at the packet capture, this is what you're going to see. This actually is the moment where the tool is doing this. And that was a lot of like correlating with the source code, what was happening while I was doing it live. And I put a bunch of screenshots of that. Finally, at the very bottom of the paper, I have, because now I give you everything you need to do so that you as an attacker, you can use it. But at the part where I think I added value here is I wrote a section for detection surface and another section for mitigations, right? And the detection surface is, I sat down, and are you familiar with the concept of threat model?
Mm.
So I did kind of like a reverse threat model where I said, if I am the owner of a network where I know somebody's going to use this, how would I protect that network? How would I protect the endpoints? How would I protect the perimeter, right? And I started listing all of those things, and then I categorized them, meaning in the detection surface, you can detect this on the endpoints because of this, because of this, because of this, because of this. On the network level, you can detect this because of this, this, this. And I did that for every aspect of a enterprise architecture, okay, in category. And then after I had the detections, like, to a pretty good spot, I created another section for mitigations where I said, to prevent this from happening altogether, you would need to do this on your endpoint, this on your network, this on your monitoring, all that stuff. And I wasn't done there. At that point, I hadn't even submitted it for the conference yet. But what I did was I sought feedback from other professionals, like other blue teamers, other people that are specialized in areas that I don't, necessarily like know as much as them about. And I asked them, hey, can you, don't share this, but can you please look at this and see if it makes sense to you? Can we reproduce it and you try to detect this behavior, right? And I took all of their input, and I took all of their feedback. and I made sure that that input was reflected in the considerations and the content of the paper. Once I had that paper, I said, okay, now I have my research documented. Let me create a very small abstract or a brief where I can describe, if I'm going to do a presentation on this, what the hell you're going to learn, why does this matter, what it isn't, and why you should attend the talk. And in that same format, I applied to probably like 10 or 15 conferences, and so far I've got 5 of them or 6.
Taking notes here because I submitted my first talk for DevCon this year. I'm not sure if
Congrats.
I'm going to get it, but I guess fingers crossed. And but I'm going to go there anyway, so I hopefully I can attend your workshop
I would love that.
and listen to this live. So like fingers crossed this will happen. And yeah, this is super exciting and cannot wait to find out more. My next question is okay. So
But one
maybe
thing, Dorota, though, I hope I can attend your talk too in DEF CON. Okay.
the fingers crossed that I will get selected, but hopefully that will happen. Like if not this year, then maybe in upcoming years. I always ask those questions. What is your favorite hacker movie, and what is your favorite dish? Dish you already mentioned, but maybe hacker movie you can.
Huh. Hacker movie. You know the funny thing, I served in the military, and now I'm working in offensive security. And I don't watch many military movies, and I don't watch many hacker movies. But I would say the favorite movie that I watch about technology, more than a movie, it's a show, the Black Mirror. I think
Oh,
something funny that happened with Black. And I'll tell you something I don't like about Black Mirror. I think Black Mirror is super pessimistic. I think all the things that happen in Black Mirror are like bad things. Like, come on, I want to think about the future as a good thing, not as a horrible dystopia. But with that set aside, I think something cool that has happened with Black Mirror is that when it first came out, some of the things you'd see there in the episodes, it was like, man, this is never going to happen, or this is going to happen 100 years from now. But the latest season I watched, it was like, dude, we already have that. It's kind of a like, maybe this is going to happen sooner than I thought, right? So yeah, but I mostly watch like Western style movies and like cowboy stuff. Matter of fact, I actually started getting a lot into like cowboy hats. So I'm gonna put mine on so you see it. Hold on. When you see me in DEF CON, I'm gonna be wearing it. So
oh, that's pretty cool.
this is my straw hat. That this is what I've fallen in love lately. So
That's so cool. So, to that topic, I want to mention that one of my favorite TV shows is Deadwood, and I'm super excited to actually go to Deadwood this year and have my talk there. So, to yeah, Wild West Hacking Fest. So yeah, fingers crossed. And okay, I'm going to wrap up. And this is like a very cool hat. I'm really happy you're wearing it for the close up. So my last question is, do you have a question for me?
uh, I would say that please, more than a question, I have an ask. Keep me updated with how your talk goes. If you get accepted or not, I would really like to make sure to schedule to go because in the Vegas week I have 3 presentations, so I have to be intentional about the schedule and the time. If in the future you'd like to uh, what do you call this, to submit other paper or something, I'm more than glad to give it a peer review kind of thing to see if we can get it accepted. And if you like also when we do a live stream for Hacker Hermanos, I'd love to invite you and have you there and then flip the script and ask you a bunch of stuff. So
It's so cool.
cool. And yeah.
I wanted to thank you for coming and so being so nice and like open-hearted with your answers here. And if you want to say something at the end, like I guess now is your time.
I am very grateful to make your virtual acquaintance, and I'm really excited that I'll probably get to meet you in person in DEF CON. And nothing other than that, just to wish you the best. I want to encourage you to continue putting yourself out there. The first time, like I said, that I heard about your social media channel and whatnot was in when you were like pursuing the OSCP, and to see the growth and the trajectory that you've had, I think is very inspiring. And I think for anybody considering a career in this field, they should certainly pursue it because you didn't get here overnight. I definitely didn't get here overnight. It took me a long time actually, But ultimately, looking back, I am glad, and I don't know that I will do something different with my professional career because it's just too cool to get paid to be a hacker. So
Yeah, and I actually really love it to be here because like for the technical part as well because I'm very curious and I love it, but also like this is like the kindest industry I've encountered so far. I worked in like several ones. Public sector like government is like maybe not my favorite, but like uh, tech and cyber is like everyone wants to share knowledge and like kind wants to help you and are very encouraging. So yeah, I'm really enjoying myself here. It's like very speaks very much to my personality as well. So happy to be here and thank you for coming again. And I'm going to wait because you have to go, but I hope to meet you soon.
talk to you soon,
Bye.
Dorota. Best of luck. Talk to you soon.